We're going to be talking about a couple things with pixel art. For the first section of this video, I'm just going to show you how I make 3D props with 2D pixel art. If you're pretty new to Blender, this might be a little hard to follow, but if you guys want like more beginner tutorials, I would love to show you guys rough like hotkeys and like things that you could do just to like streamline your modeling. For now, we're just going to start off. It's going to be like a semi-intermediate. As long as you know the basics of Blender, you should be just fine. I'm just going to start off with this blank canvas. And by the way, if you guys want the files, as if you're supporting my Kofi, you can download it there. If not, that's totally okay, and you can just follow along with your own artwork, however you want to do it. But yeah, so I'm just going to start off with blank canvas, and I'm just going to do Shift A, and I'm going to create a mesh, and I'm going to create the cube. One thing, if you push Tab, that goes into edit mode, and then if you push Control R, you'll see this line come up. What this is doing is just splitting it in half. So you just click it, and then you would right click, and what that does is that centers it. And I'm just pushing the 1 on the numpad, and if you don't have that, that's okay. You could push this Y and it'll snap to it, but that's just a hotkey if you do have a numpad. But while you're in vertice mode up here, if you just drag over and then you push X, delete vertices, and I'm just going to push A and then G, and what that does is grab it, and Z, and then bring it up to where it's lined up with the x-axis, just because it's the door, and so it's going to be, that's the bottom of the door. We're going to go to the modifier tab, which is the blue tool, and we're going to add a modifier. I'm going to search for mirror, but just in case you don't have it, it should just be in generate and then mirror. So I'm just going to type in mirror. We already have this on the x-axis, and I'm just going to turn on clipping. So what clipping does is that it connects these two vertices in the middle. If you have clipping, so I'm just going to push the solid icon so you can see it a little bit better, but if I turn off clipping, it's separate, but if I turn on clipping, they stay connected. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to push the 3, or you could hit the X up here, so if you just do that. I'm just going to push S and then Y, because I'm going to scale it on the Y axis. I'm going to make it roughly about that big, and that's just going to be a good door size. But one thing that you could do that really helps with modeling is just bringing in a reference, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to go in, I push 1 to get that view, and I'm doing Shift A, image, reference, and I'm just going to bring up my door that I've drawn, and this will be available on Ko-Fi. This is just an old art asset from the Red Forest when it was very new, and I don't think I'll use it, so if you do support me on Ko-Fi and want to use this for your own projects, you can use it for practice all you want. I just aligned it, I pushed G, I brought it on the y-axis. This is a good reference just for scale and how we're going to mold this thing. And this is a pretty high-res pixel art door, which is okay. I could show on some lower res, but the concept should be the same. I like to be in wireframe mode. It's just up here on the right, or viewport shading mode, because what it does is it just helps so you could see the reference a little bit better. But I'm just going to go ahead and grab these vertices, push G, push X, drag it out a little bit, and I'm just going to go out of edit mode real quick and just make sure this is centered. I'm just aligning right here because I know that that's the center, so I'm just going to be like, whoop, there we go. Now we're in the center. All right, so now let's go back to the cube, and we got that here. So in edit mode, and I'm just going to bring this up all the way up to the top. I'm going to grab these and make sure you're dragging, just because this is a 3D object. You want to make sure you're not just clicking the front vertex either. You just drag over both. What you could do is Control B, and what this is just a bevel. So it helps a little bit with the door shape, and you can use the scroll wheel to make it as high poly as you want. So I just bring it up 1, maybe 2. Yeah, so 2 is good. Kind of gives it that nice round edge, and then you just drag down with your mouse and then left click when you're done. You're all ready to go. So I'm actually going to do something fun here. So I'm going to grab the face. I'm going to go into face mode, and I'm going to select this, push 1 so I'm looking at it directly. I'm going to push I, and then bring it in, just because what this does is I forgot the word for it, but it brings it in basically. So I'm just going to bring it in just a little bit, and then I'm going to push 3 so I can view it from the side, and then G and Y to move it along the y-axis, and then just bring it forward just a little bit. And so now it's kind of cool. You have this little crease, and I'm going to actually grab this line. I'm going to go into line mode, grab this line and I'm just going to bring it to the left just a little bit just to emphasize that there is a crease there. Perfect. And since this is a door and it will open, I'm actually going to go back to the mirror mode and turn off clipping. Just so we can come this way, have it like that. And I'm going to grab these vertices here, go into line mode, push Alt, and then click. It should wrap around the border here. And then if you push F, that fills it. So then now you have like a filled door. And I'm just going to push A, 1 just to get the view back, and then G and X just to bring it back together. I'll probably just do it like that. And you can adjust these in the game as well. But yeah, that's good for now. I'm going to go ahead and if you exit edit mode, we can now assign it a material. You go to this little red material icon and then you hit new. And then I like to do naming conventions because this is what comes into Unreal, so it just saves you a little bit of time. And I'm just going to do M big door. And so for base color, we are actually just going to click this little icon here and go to image texture and then go to the image icon drop down, and it should already be here. Whatever art that you inserted, it should be here. And so you just click it, and if not, you can do the open button and you just find it in your file explorer. If you're using pixel art, go to linear and change it to closest. That will give you the pixel art texture, because if you have linear, it's all blurry, which doesn't necessarily matter because you're going to be changing this anyways in Unreal, but I find it helpful for UV unwrapping and just knowing a rough idea of what it'll look like. And I just like to bring the roughness all the way up because I don't really like that shine. But yep, so let's go ahead, now that you see that it has the texture and it looks terrible, so we'll go ahead and fix this now. We can go ahead and head into UV editing. So really quick, I'm just going to show you a rough way. There's a lot of different ways you can handle UV unwrapping. You can even do just like, you can push U and do smart UV project, but I like to add seams when I can. So if you push Alt click while you're in line mode up here, by the way, I use the middle mouse button to drag this. You're in line mode and then you do Alt Shift click, Alt Shift click, and just grab what you think would be a good seam. So like down here, and you want to try to make it so it's out of the way. And I am not a master at UV unwrapping, so if I'm doing it wrong or if I'm not doing it the best way, that's totally okay with me. I'm just showing you how I do it, and feel free to do it however you like. But once you go ahead and grab your seams, you just push U and then mark seam, and then A, U. I'm just gonna do conformal. That usually works out for me. You can also do like, let's see, I think you could do like triangle based, minimum stretch, and I might actually do the minimum stretch, but you can like change all these settings. But yeah, so I'm just gonna start off with this. I'm going to push A, and then so you can see all the UVs here on the left. You can see this one's upside down, so I push L, and what that does, it selects everything that's connected, and then I push R, and I'm just gonna do 180. And that's just going to flip it around. So we'll just go ahead and we're going to grab it and just bring it in the middle here. And this will be... So you can see it's mirrored, and we're just going to go ahead and fix that by applying the mirror modifier. So I'm just going to do apply, and then so now these are separate pieces. So I'm just going to push L, and you can see that they have the same unwrap, so or the same UVs. So I'm just going to go ahead and do U, minimum stretch for this one as well, just so it's not mirrored. And I'm going to grab this guy, and you can see now that it's not mirrored, so perfect. And let's go ahead and align this with the crack. And you can kind of like mess around with it just to... And then we're going to go back to this one. I'm going to push L so it selects everything over here and just adjust it a little bit. Yeah, there you go. So you have like a rough estimate, and you can see when I drew the seam, it didn't go all the way down the center. It's really not that big of a deal. We can remove it, but just for the purposes of this video, I'm just gonna leave it. But in another video, I'd probably like do something like that, do the knife tool, and just kind of like edge it out. But I'm not going to do that right now. Or you could do the Boolean tool, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. I'm just showing you guys how I create doors, and yeah. But this is a good start. Quickly do the... It's pretty cool. You already can see like the stone that's on the edges, and I freaking love pixel art on 3D models. I'm going to go into edit mode, and then I'm going to push L, so only one selected, and then P, and then separate by selection. So that just separates it from each other. So these are two different static meshes now. And then you can shift click, save file, external data, and pack resources. What that does is it packs this texture in with the mesh, so you don't have to export and import everything separately. So go ahead and go to file again, export, FBX, limit to selected objects, click on mesh, and then under transform, I do Y forward and Z up, and then geometry, I change it to face. And I uncheck animation because we don't need that, but you don't really necessarily need that. And then export FBX. Sweet. So once you're in Unreal, drag and drop in your FBX, or you don't necessarily need to name it. I just like to. If you packed the resources, you should get that. And one thing to do, go ahead and head over to your texture, right click it, sprite actions, and apply paper 2D texture settings. And when that does is it actually removes the filter completely. All right, so now that you can see the two doors are here, and you bring it into your world, and you can see it's really like the pixel art is there. It's of course high res pixel art, but at this point you can start making logic for the door. So one thing you can notice is that this door has a rotational point in the very center, and you don't really want that when it comes to a door. You want it to be on this side. I'm going to show you guys how to go ahead and change your origin point, and I'm just going to move this over, and I'm going to select this door. I'm going to hide the image just so it's a little bit easier to see. And if you go and grab it and push X and go along this, now you can shift it all the way to the corner so it's all lined up, and then push A, do Control A, and then what this does is it applies, I'm just going to do all transforms, and now if you rotate it, it moves just like a door. And I'm going to do the same for this one. I'm going to grab it. I'm just going to go ahead and grab it, push X, and you want it to line up with the back corner, just like that. And now Control A, all transforms, and now do like that. Now the origin is in the middle. And now I'm just going to line up the doors, just like that. So now I'm just going to export the doors, file, export, and it's okay if it looks a little funky here, but I promise it'll work out. So I'm just going to save over the other one, so it's a really easy re-import. So now I'm just going to export FBX over the same one, so that overwrites it. I'm going to shift click these two, right click, and then re-import. And so what that does is it just re-imports it with the new origin, so now it works like a normal door. And you could turn this into a blueprint, so it'd be super easy to set up into actual like working door. I think that messed up the UVs a little bit, but yeah, so you could bring in your textures just like that. I'm going to show you guys how I make these environments in my game, and it's just pixel art textures and working with materials in a 3D space. So I'm going to show you two ways of level design. This way is very quick and easy, and really I highly recommend it if you're just a solo dev and just worry about like if it's very like boxy, like you're okay with that, like dungeons and stuff. There's this method, and then there's also this method where it's you actually 3D model the environment and then import it into your game. How I made this, it's basically by using the Unreal Engine modeling mode, and I'm just gonna go through, you could follow along here. This is going to be a vaulting and climbing area, so I could like play test my game. Just a very small level with you guys, and you guys can follow along. But I'm just going to go into selection mode and go click on this drop down and go to modeling. And there's this really awesome tool called the cube grid. And what that is, it's think of just Minecraft. That's all you're doing here. But you just go to cube grid and it brings up this grid. I just had something selected, that's why I did that. So once you do that, of course, like if you're super new, I'm just going to speed run these. Holding right click looks around. WASD is flying, like going in direction. If you hold middle mouse button, you can go up and down. And yeah, that's pretty much. And you can Q and E. E makes you go up, Q makes you go down. So that's kind of the controls I'm going to be mostly using. Also, if you hold down C, that zooms. Think of like Minecraft. Yeah, so if you hold C, it just like zooms in, but yeah, it's pretty sweet. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. For my area, I'm just gonna do something super simple here. I'm just gonna grab, and you just drag and drop, and that's just like the scale of what you're doing. So you drag until you want a rough size that works for you, and then I'm gonna push E, and what this does is it extrudes, and then Q makes it disappear. So if you go like that, it'll just keep going down, and if you do E, it'll just make that. So I'm just gonna start like this really quick. Q grid, and then I'm just gonna make a little square. And then I'm just going to push Q and have it like that. So I'm just going to bring up the main floor here, and I'm just going to go to the side, and I'm going to, you can kind of see roughly like it, wherever you hover, that's where it's going to come from. So I'm hovering on the side here, and I'm just going to make some walls. I'm just going to push E, and then you go to this corner, drag out. I'm going to go out one just so I could easily make another wall. Push E, and then same here, go here, and then push E. And so now you have a little box, and it's perfect. So I'm going to just make a couple little platforms. It doesn't matter the size, but this is good. I want to try to make a gym so then I can practice like platforming and see how it feels. So I'm just doing like random things along the side here. I'm just gonna go ahead and make another platform here. Just go out a little bit. Just like that. And another, I'm just gonna push accept here. So I think those are good. And another thing you could do is add stairs. It's pretty sweet. There's different options that you could do. Once you click it, it places it, but you have more options to work with. So you can change it from linear to floating, and that makes it like a floating staircase. And then you can make it curved, or you can make it spiral. And it's basically curved, it's just without the bottom. But I'm just going to go ahead and do linear, and I'm going to line it up with this thing right here. I'm going to make the number of steps just a little bit higher, and then I'm going to widen them a bit. Just like that. I'm going to make the width just a little bit wider. I'm probably just going to take up this whole area here. That's perfect. And this is a good step height. It depends on your step up height in your game, but I'm just going to hit accept. Sweet. So now we have like a really, really rough block out. Another thing I do want to show you really quick is when you click on your mesh and you go to cube grid, it will edit this map. So you can totally like cut out holes and damage it if you want. Like you can change like everything about it. But if you don't want to affect this area you've already made, just make sure you hit escape and then do cube grid, and you're creating a new mesh. So what I'm going to do, I did that. I'm in a fresh cube grid, so it's not going to edit this. So if I push Q, it doesn't do anything. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here and make the current block size. I'm going to just do 25, because so then it's like pretty small. Actually, that's maybe a little too small. I'm going to do 50. Yeah, so I'll just go ahead and do 25, and I'm just going to make a little railing just for fun, on like showing you how you can make different props and blockouts in a modular way. And I'm just going to bring it in one so it adds a little bit of volume, and just gonna do like every two, just like that. And I'm just gonna actually keep this railing consistent. But yeah, you could mess around with this all you want. It's really awesome to play with. But yeah, I'm just gonna end this here, and then I'm just going to bring this out and then bring this up just to kind of box it in a little bit. But yeah, now you have a really cool railing. It's pretty sweet. So yeah, now if you play, you can come over here, and then you can just like practice, like, oh, okay, my jump is a little floaty right now, and the dash, it's actually, it's all right. It's not too bad. But you can see when I'm sprinting, excuse the animations, that like it's just a little too far. So this is a really good way you could like prototype movement as well. But yeah, so this is the railing, and I think that's actually great height. So we'll just go ahead and continue on from here. One thing I did want to show you that I thought was pretty awesome is I'm going to actually click on this base mesh that we made, and then I'm going to go into cube grid again, and I'm going to make the grid block size 100 again. Oops, not 1,000. And I'm going to make a little hole, or not a hole, but I'm going to grab this center piece right here, and I just wanted to show you guys something cool. Actually grab a bigger piece. I'm going to push E, and then this really cool feature is called corner mode. And I'm going to grab this section right here and go into corner mode, and I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to push Q, and you can see that it creates a slope. So it's super helpful for when you want to make just little corners. But yeah, so I'm going to just do the same over here and just do that, and you can see it's starting to make a little platform. So I'm going to continue on, corner mode, down, and then I'm going to grab this last piece, and then corner mode. You grab the corners and then push Q. There you go. And now you have a cool little platform you can work with, and you could do this for whatever you want. Like you can make little hills, and it's really good for like low poly stuff. But yeah, that's what you could work with. So I'm gonna show you a way to make this look like this. So you could see there's different textures. So like the walls have different textures in the floor. There's a ton of different ways you could do this. I'm just going to show you one today, but what we're going to do, I'm going to grab this, and then I'm going to shift click the railing, and then I'm going to right click where you could see they're highlighted and go to browse to asset, and now they're all automatically selected in your creations. So I'm going to right click, and then I'm going to do asset actions, and I'm going to just do bulk export. I find that to be a lot easier. And I'm just going to put it in one of my files and export all. And so now if you go back to Blender, I'm going to move these out of the way because I'm just going to keep this all in one file. And so if you do file, import, FBX, what's that? And then I'm just going to grab my files that I have made, and I'm going to grab the cube grids, and then you just import. So I'm going to hide the railing for now. We'll get to that next, but one thing you could do, I'm just going to rename it to vault area. By the way, renaming is F2. You just name it whatever you want. But I'm just going to go and delete the materials that are attached to this. And I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to call it m_walls. And then I'm going to create another one, and I'm going to do m_floor. So now you go into edit mode, and you can see it's all in triangles. It's kind of a mess, but I'm just going to do A, and then I'm going to do F3 and do tries to quads, and that just makes it a little bit easier. There's a lot of different ways you could do this, and this is just the way that I do it. I'm just going to show you guys this method, but if you deselect everything and go into face mode, you can see, I'll show you the difference. So the walls, I'll just make it a dark color, and you can see that's just affecting everything. And so let's go ahead and click on the floor material. If you push C, you kind of get like this paintbrush where you could just like grab whatever. But I'm just going to push C, and I'm just going to highlight everything that's the floor. So like all this stuff. And then you can scroll to make the paintbrush a little bit bigger or smaller. And I'm just going to grab all the stuff that's a floor. I feel like floors are really easy. And then if you right click, it cancels it, so you could just kind of like move around if you need to. But I'm just going to grab all the floors, and I think that's everything. We don't really need this, but I'm just gonna do it. Also, middle mouse button removes the selection. So like if I'm here and I do middle mouse button, it deselects it, and then left click, it selects it, and then right click stops it. So now that it's all selected, I'm gonna click on the floor material. I'm gonna hit assign. So now you can see there are two different materials. So all the walls are black and all the floors are red. So now we're just going to keep it really simple. You can edit this as much as you want. Like you can come in here and you can add, like you can select this face and like insert it and add like more. But it's really good just to do a block out in Unreal first and then bring it in, just so you know, and you can add like props and stuff, but this is what we'll start with for now. And so I'm just gonna file, export, FBX, and just make sure you have those same settings as before, where it's selected objects, mesh, geometry, armature, and go ahead and I'm just gonna call this one vault area and export. So now, coming back into Unreal, I'm gonna bring in the vault area now, and I'm just dragging and dropping the FBX, and I'm just gonna import it. And so now you can see if I grab this static mesh and bring it in, actually you can see how it kind of looks a little weird. So I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna go into edit mode, select everything, and I'm just gonna do shade flat. I think that's what's going on with the normals. I'm just gonna re-export it real quick. Vault area, export, perfect. And then I'm just gonna re-import, right click, re-import. And now you can see it's perfectly flat. It doesn't have those weird normals. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna delete this one, and I'm gonna bring this bad boy right back in and drag it down just so it's all lined up. Perfect. So now you can see those textures are in place. And I'm gonna show you just there's a lot of ways to do this, but I'm just gonna go into selection mode just so you can see a little bit better. It has created a couple materials for you automatically. I recommend making a base material and then making instances, but double click. I'm just going to start with the walls, and I'm just going to delete all this garbage. For pixel art, I like to make the specular one and the roughness one. It kind of gives it a nice bold look. I'm going to right click and do world aligned texture, and I'm going to plug in the XYZ texture into base color, and then I'm just going to drag off of texture object, and I'm going to do texture object parameter, because then we could set this up to be modular, and I'm just going to call this texture. And in here I just have a basic brick stone texture I'll use. I'll just go ahead and do dark wall brick, something like that. And then texture size, if you hold 1 and left click, you can get a parameter. I'm going to just promote this to a text. I'm going to call it texture size, and I'm just going to start off with 200. That's usually a good number for me. But now that you named it something, you can change it on the fly, so it's nice. But so now you go back and you can see that it's now a brick texture. Cool, so let's go ahead and do the floors. And actually for the floors now, what we're going to do is go ahead and you could do this to search it. You could click on this little guy and it'll bring it up. So we're not actually going to do this all the way from the beginning again. And I'm going to show you guys how to make material instances. So if you get this wall texture, I'm going to rename this to world aligned base. So now you have this selected, and if you right click it, you go to material instance and it creates a little instance for you. I'm just going to call it world aligned floor, and I'm going to drag and drop it on the red, or you could drag and drop it on over here, and now you can see it's aligned. But one thing that I do want to do is go into it, and you can see that it's all just variables now. So if you click these, you can change like how big or small the textures are. So I'm just going to keep it at 200 for now, and then I'm going to change this to just a different one. I'll just do the noisy one because this one has like broken stuff and this one's a little bit cleaner. So now you have your brick texture, and same with this one. This will work on stairs as well. So if you drag and drop this, you can see that it's not like perfectly aligned, but it really helps if you're just trying to work on levels quickly. You could always reiterate and narrow things down as you need. And you could do the same thing where you could just drag and drop this here, duplicate this, so Control D, and I'm just going to do world align fence, and you can drag and drop that on there, and then what you could do is open it, and then I'm just going to do bark. I think I have some bark texture in here, yeah. And so now, when you go in, it's got the wooden texture, and I'll remove the collision view, but yep. So now when you go in, you have your level. And you can do a lot more, like you can assign like borders and trim, but this is a really good start. Since this video kind of ended up being a lot longer than I expected it to be, let me know if you guys want that second video where I actually go into 3D modeling, assigning textures, and actually using the UVs to its advantage, and how I kind of mix those world-aligned textures with UVs and how to set up props. Let me know if you're interested in that sort of style, and I'll make a part 2. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. This was really fun to make, and I honestly find it really awesome to be able to show you guys how I'm building the Red Forest and how my passion game is also a way where I could show people how to make 2.5D games, because I feel like this is very niche, but the people who create 2.5D games, like, I love the art style so much, so it's so awesome to see what you guys do. But yeah, if you guys want to join the Discord, you can go ahead and do that. I'll leave links in the description, but I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you.